You are listening to the So Now What podcast with Lana Manikowski, episode number 183.
So now what? These three words raced through my mind time and time again during my journey through fertility treatments. I tried desperately to have a child, but never was able. I yearned for a community to join that could understand my struggles. I couldn't find one, so I created one with the So Now What podcast. I love that you found us.
Welcome to a new episode of the So Now What podcast. This week, we are going to dive into a phrase you have probably heard more times than you can count. And that is 4 words, at least you can. Maybe you heard it while you were still going through fertility treatments. Maybe you've heard it now that your treatment journey is over. Or maybe you still hear it today when somebody finds out that you are childless or infertile. People think it is comforting, but what it does is rarely feel comfortable. And just yesterday, when my nephew got injured in a soccer game, I noticed myself bumping into that same at least instinct. So today I am going to talk to you about what the at least you can type comments really mean, why they don't land the way that people think they do, and how you can stop internalizing the silent message they send. That message that sadness, disappointment, and grief are emotions that you shouldn't be feeling. Before we dive in, a few quick announcements for you. On Wednesday, September 17th, I am teaching a free class all about the things people say when you are childless. If you listen to today's episode and you are like, I want to learn more, this class is going to be for you. It is all about how you can stop spiraling, how you can stop internalizing the things that people say when you are childless. And I'm also going to give you some ideas for ways that you can respond to their comments. I taught something similar last month and realized that there are so many women around the world that wanted to attend this class, but because of time zones, time did not work out. So this class is going to be held in the morning here in the US, which would translate into early evening for those in Europe. If you want to register, you can just go to the link in my bio. I'll also put it in the show notes. This class is designed for you if you want to walk away with practical ways to respond that leave you feeling settled, like sturdy, confident, and not ashamed that you don't have kids. On Saturday, September the 20th at 8 a.m. Central, 2 p.m. British Standard Time, I am leading a beautiful panel during World Childless Week, which if you haven't attended World Childless Week, I encourage you to do so. It was founded by Stephanie Joy Phillips. It is a whole week full of free webinars and seminars and conversations for women who are childless. And I am leading this panel called Rediscovering Your Identity as a Childless Woman. Along with 4 other beautiful women who are childless not by choice, we are going to explore what it means to redefine yourself when motherhood doesn't happen. How to step into a version of yourself that you feel whole, you feel meaningful, you feel purposeful, even if you didn't have the children that you always thought that you would have. So I would love for you to join me. I will put a link to it to the show notes, or you can go to my bio and sign up, and it is for free. All right, so let's get into today's episode, all about the at least you can comments. You have probably heard things like, at least you can travel whenever you want. At least you don't have to save money to pay for college. At least you can sleep in on a Saturday. At least you can go for dinner without needing to secure a babysitter. If you are childless after infertility, you know how hollow these comments can feel because, yes, technically those things may be true, but they do not erase the grief of not becoming a mother. They don't touch the heartbreak of infertility. They don't make life without children suddenly feel carefree. So why do people say them? Why is at least the default? Well, it comes down to this. Sadness makes the world uncomfortable. Okay, think about that. We live in a society that tells us if you are grieving, if you're disappointed, if you're heartbroken, then something must be really wrong with you. You need to be fixed. You need to move on. You need to find the silver lining. And when other people bump into your sadness, they just don't know what to do with it. So they reach for the "at least" comments. They try to cheer you up because they are uncomfortable sitting in the truth of your pain. Here is what is important. Sometimes because we have heard that and learned that and seen that, we do the same exact things to ourselves. So I told you about my nephew, freshman in high school, at a new school, and we were like all excited for him because as a freshman, he made the boys' varsity soccer team. And we have been like showing up to every game. We have been in the stands cheering him on, and he has been starting as a freshman, and it's like totally amazing. Except yesterday, I got a text from my sister with a picture of an x-ray of his wrist and his pinky, and he might be out for the whole season. And my instinct was, how can I make him feel better? How can I save the day? And all I wanted to do was like, I thought about this conversation and being like, oh, honey, at least you're only a freshman. You have so many years ahead of you to play. At least it's early in the season. Maybe you'll be healed by the end of the season. And of course, he's my little pumpkin. I do not want him to feel sad. I want him to see that there is possibility ahead of him. But in that moment, when I was thinking about what I wanted to call or text him, I thought to myself, the truth was that it hurts. This was an exciting new start for him. And what he doesn't need is silver linings. What he needs is me to sit next to him and say, oh my God, this totally stinks. And it's okay if you feel disappointed. And when I stopped myself and noticed that in myself, it really helped me notice something important. Something that I cognitively, yes, have known as a coach and somebody who has an advanced certification in grief is that our culture is so uncomfortable with sadness. And we're so uncomfortable with it that we instinctively try to erase it, even when the person we love just needs to feel it. And if we're not careful, that cultural reflex becomes a silent message that we continue to send to ourselves of, don't be sad, don't be disappointed, don't let heartbreak show up in your life. Isn't that exactly what happens to us when IVF fails? Instead of someone saying, yes, this is sad, yes, this is heartbreaking, I am with you, I am here to hear whatever you say, we hear, oh, honey, at least you can travel. Well, at least you don't have to deal with the stress of raising kids. Or if you've ever been through a pregnancy loss, you might have heard someone say, at least you weren't further along, or at least you know now. The at least doesn't make the grief smaller. It makes the grief lonelier. Because on top of the heartbreak of infertility, you now feel unseen. You feel misunderstood and maybe even pressured to stop feeling sadness at all. And when you hear these messages enough, you start sending them to yourself. You begin to think, maybe I shouldn't feel sad. Maybe grief means that I'm broken. Maybe the only acceptable story is where I'm grateful for my freedom and I never want to talk about how disconnected I feel from a life I'm living that is so different than what I thought. But that is not the truth. Sadness is not a flaw. Sadness is somehow this proof that something really mattered to you. I know this from my own journey. Like after my last cycle, I sat in sadness by myself for years. The sadness felt endless. I didn't feel comfortable talking about how sad and lonely and disconnected I felt from myself and my life because the world had been telling me that those type of comments and thoughts and feelings make people feel really, really uncomfortable. And here is what I have learned through my own healing and through my own work as a coach, that sadness is not the only part of your story. What a lot of us feel is sadness sometimes. Sadness when we walk into a room and we see a mother holding a baby, or we pass a pregnant woman, or like me for years walking through Target and going and passing the maternity aisle and seeing all the cute mannequins with the cute clothes. But the truth is, you are not sad 100% of the time. Think about that. Even in the midst of heartbreak, you have laughed. You have enjoyed time with friends. You have enjoyed good experiences. You have gone on beautiful vacations. You have had moments where you were just so proud of yourself. Maybe you felt love for your partner, or you felt moments of love for a friend or a family member. You have sadness, yes, and maybe there's parts of you that define yourself as sadness, but you are also joyful. You're also creative, friendly, and loving. I see so many women out there alienating themselves because they think that their sadness is wrong, that other people wanting to fix them and pitying them or seeing them as sad makes them uncomfortable to other people, and that other people just don't know what to do with you because they don't know how to navigate you being sad. So many of the clients that have come to work with me come to me saying, I just don't want to feel like this forever. I don't want to feel like sadness is going to define my whole life. And that is where our work begins, because it's not about denying that sadness exists. It's not about pretending to be grateful all the time, but it's about creating room for both of those things. The grief of infertility and IVF failing, and still all the good that exists. Most people don't understand that you can learn to hold on to both of those feelings. You can stop making sadness mean that you are broken. You can start to see sadness for what it is. It is a natural human response to something that you wanted and it didn't happen. And from there, you can start asking, what else is possible for me? What kind of life do I want to create, not in spite of my grief, but alongside of it? That is, to me, the most magical realization, that rediscovering your identity as a childless woman can play a role in this, because your identity doesn't have to be defined by loss. It doesn't have to be defined by failed cycles. It doesn't have to be defined by disconnection. It can be rooted in something that you see as strength, something that feels like growth, something that is full of possibility. That is exactly why I started this podcast 4 years ago. Did you know that it was my baby's 4th birthday? 4 years ago, my little baby podcast, I recorded in my closet with a pair of earbuds, not knowing if anyone would listen. Sometimes it makes me cringe to think about going back and hearing my early episodes of this show, how slowly I talked, how janky my sound quality was, and how uncertain I sounded, but it started anyway. I started this podcast because I knew women like us, women who were childless, not by choice, childless after fertility treatments, deserved a voice, because we deserve a place to feel seen, understood, and guided towards a life that has meaning and purpose. And here we are, 4 years later. I didn't have to look at myself as broken because I felt sadness, but I took that sadness and I created something from it. So as I celebrate this anniversary of my podcast, and if you have listened to an episode and you have found it helpful, I would just love it if you would leave a rating and review of the podcast. What that does is helps the algorithm gods, which God bless them, I hate them and love them at the same time, The more ratings and review this podcast has, the more chance that women who are seeking resources, because if they're like me and possibly like you, they were given none from their fertility clinic, they might come across this podcast and it might help to impact the way that they see themselves and allow themselves to see that the sadness that they are feeling is not a definer for who they are and their purpose as a woman. If you end up leaving a rating and or a review, go to the show notes. I would love to buy you a coffee as a thank you for doing that. I put everything in there for how I can send you a coffee. Thank you for being part of these 4 years. And thank you for letting me sit with you in the sadness and celebrate with you in your growth. I hope you have a beautiful week. I love you. And remember that it's never too late to discover your meaning. I'll talk to you next week.
Hey, real quick, I just want to tell you about an awesome resource I created. If you have ever found yourself in conversations with people, or maybe people offering you suggestions about what you should do to become a mom, it's called The Top 27 Things People Say When You're Childless and How to Respond. You can get your copy free at lanamanikowski.com/thingspeoplesay.